call, please.
Wayne Clark,
Yes.
Karen Gale, Don
Excuse-
Niemer,
Here.
Alderman Shaplewski, Alderman Haas, Jerry Botter,
Here.
Jason Metz.
Here. We have a quorum.
Move approval of the minutes.
Second.
Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Minutes stand approved. First item on the agenda tonight is the public hearing. I, Jerry Motter, Chairman of the Community Development Authority. The notice of the hearing will now be read, but we got that hearing?
Clock is 2 minutes fast. It's
Notice
6
is hereby
o'clock.
given that the city of West Dallas will hold an organizational review board meeting. A notice is hereby given that the Community Development Authority, City of West Dallas will hold a public hearing on November 12th, 2019 at 6 p.m. at the City Hall located at 7525 West Greenfield Avenue for the purposes of providing the community a reasonable opportunity to comment on the proposed creation of the district and its project plan boundaries.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stevo. The Executive Director of the Community Development Authority has filed with the authority the notice of the hearing affidavits of publication will be filed as soon as received from the official newspaper as required by Section 66.1333 Wisconsin statutes. These documents will be part of the proceedings in this matter. The purpose is probably to hear the opportunity of all interested parties to express their views and propose consideration on the creation of tax interest district number 18, Chris Hansen, South 92nd and Lapham, City of West Dallas, and approve the proposed boundaries of the project plan therefore. B, follow the closing of this hearing, the authority will consider a vote on the resolution to designate the proposed boundaries and approving the project's plan for tax increment district number 13, Chris Hansen, South 92nd and Lapham, City of West Dallas, Wisconsin. If the resolution will be submitted to the Common Council by the City of West Dallas for approval, it's provided by Section 66.1333 Wisconsin statutes. Mr. Stiebel, you have the floor.
Patrick, would you do the public hearing, please?
Yes. Members of the authority, tonight we are doing the statutory requirement to hold a public hearing for the adoption or consideration of a tax increment district number 18 to facilitate the Chris Hansen expansion, 92nd and Lapham. Just to remind everybody, Chris Hansen has around 290 employees here in West Dallas. They're a bioscience business where 1 billion people a day consume a product that's influenced by Chris Hansen globally. They have a number of skilled and high level positions that are important to cheese business, dairy business in Wisconsin, and internationally. Chris Hansen is a Danish business. The U.S. headquarters are here in West Dallas, but they're recognized as the world's most sustainable business in terms of for the environment. They are looking to do a 9 to 18, actually around $25 million investment for their first phase. They would start construction here in 2020 at a 20,000 square foot addition of manufacturing space that would project out west of their current location. There would be around 25 new positions. Our philosophy through this TIF was also to help Denmark consider future investments at the facility. And when we created the TIF, as you're going to see here shortly, the idea was to leave the door open for future expansion of the site. Chris Hansen did buy a number of, I think around 9 properties around the site, including the Knights of Columbus, which is located here to the western portion of their headquarters on 92nd and Lapham roughly. The first expansion would be in this general area. These 9 properties have already been raised and cleared. And this pretty much, this orange line on the outside represents the entire boundary of the development area that has all the properties that are going to be included within the TIF. They are currently in the process of doing a CSM that would put this all within their corporate campus. This is the phase 1. This on the left is the current facility, and on the right is the expansion. This is the proposed boundary of the TIF area. The TIF plan outlines project costs of the following: 1.4 million of increment from a $25 million development, which would have an estimated $5 million taxable value. And this is supposed to be completed by December 31st of 2022. The 1.4 million of increment is gained over a 12-year period from the start of construction. The 11.9 million here indicated as a placeholder. It's 11.9 million of increment if there's a future expansion of the Chris Hansen facility. If they do a number of other developments at the site, there's a chance that there could be close to $200 million in development. Now, there's no guarantee of any of that. It's just if everything substantially comes together, this is what it could be realized within this TIF. So that's why before I alluded to the door being open for Denmark to continue to do investment here at the Chris Hansen site. We also have $200,000 for a half-mile improvements around the site. This is within the statute to do economic or housing or demolition projects within a half-mile of the TIF, and $155,000 in there for development of the TIF district and also administration.
That 155,000 would be managed by you.
The city of West Allis, correct.
Thank you.
The 7.4 million estimated base value for the TIF is all the properties that are within the yellow boundary that we outlined before. So there is a significant base at the level of construction there in the land value. As we alluded to before, 40 million of tax increment could be gained by roughly 200 million in development if everything could come into place. So the first phase right now is 25 million with a 5 million of incremental value. And if there's additional development, this is a TIF that is a PAYGO. So the Chris Hansen will have to do these investments to achieve any of the benefit from the TIF. That we do have a stipulation within the development agreement that this development in phase 2 would have to start before 2025. And then they would get 12 years of increment from the start of those particular phases. If as I outlined before, the bottom line, which is really easy for you all to see, 1.4 million is the tax increment for the first phase, and the potential 11.9 million of increment for the second phase, for a total expenditure of around 13.2. Then we add in the 200,000 for the half mile and the admin for a total TIF expenditure of around 13.6, with a TIF termination date of around 2037, based on the terms of the development agreement. So it would take to 2037 for this TIF to be complete. We pay off all our expenditure obligations within this TIF. As I outlined before, the first phase, 18 million, and then there's a phase 2 unknown, but it has the potential to maybe add 100 full-time jobs. The first phase is 25. The demolition for the Knights of Columbus is around December 31st, and then they would start construction in spring. They are, I think, already talking with planning to have plans submitted here either in December or January. And then phase 2, dependent on business growth, no later than December 31st of 2025, could they realize the 12 years of increment for each phase. So that's a stipulation to attract that investment to the site. The schedule currently is we had the introduction of the TIF plan on October 8th. We had the first joint review board meeting on November 7th. Tonight we're fulfilling the statutory obligation of the public hearing for the TIF boundary and TIF plan. On December 3rd, the Common Council would consider the TIF plan and the boundaries, and then we would have the last step, it's just the joint review board meeting here in late December. I gladly answer any questions that you may have regarding the TIF.
Any questions of the board? If not, we'll proceed. Any interested parties and tenants may now express their views and propose consideration for tax increment district number 13, Chris Hansen, South 92nd, Lapham Street, City of West Allis, and approval of the proposed boundaries and project. Please raise your hand to be recognized. Upon being recognized, state your name, your address, and your interest in the proposal. Then you may proceed with your statement. If you are on behalf of an interested party, please state the name of the party you represent. Does anyone wish to be recognized at this time?
Mr. Chairman, do want to point out that Todd Taves is here from Ellers.
Yes.
Who helped develop the projections for the TIF and also worked with us on the creation of the TIF plan. So if there's any questions for Ellers, we do have them here too, relative to the feasibility of the TIF.
Right. Seeing no questions at this time, is there any other questions regarding this matter? If not, there be no parties wish to present, I declare this hearing closed, and I will now proceed with our next order of business. Item number 2, the
Yes,
proposed.
three.
Okay.
Item three, we did.
3?
Yeah.
We'll skip 2, okay, 3. Item 3, resolution considered designation, proposed boundaries, and adopting a project plan for tax district number 18, City of West Dallas, Wisconsin. Mr. Stevel.
Yeah, Patrick.
This is just for the approval of the TIF plan. You're on item 3.
Yeah,
We just held the public hearing.
Right, so this step is just this slide here outlining that this is the boundary of the TIF, and then it's for the adoption of the TIF plan that was just outlined in the public hearing.
Move approval.
Second.
been moved approval of second. Is there any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Item 4, resolution to consider approval of sole source contract with Eller and Associates Incorporated for the preparation of tax interim district number 18, the district. Mr. Stevel.
We, in conjunction with the finance department, have continued to hire Ellers to do all our financial projections and the preparation of the plan, and this is their payment for doing so.
I move approval. Second.
Been moved for approval of second. Any further discussion? Mr. Clark.
Yes, well, do we pay by the hour or by the project? How do we pay
It's a
Ellers?
flat fee,
Pardon me?
flat fee,
What is that?
$15,000.
I'm sorry. For the entire work on number 18?
Yes, correct.
Thank you.
Thank you. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes.
Oh, there it is, right on the board there.
We don't have to go into closed session for nothing there, okay. Item number 5, discussion relative to the property located at 10620 West Greenfield Avenue, former Burger King. Mr. Stevel.
Mr. Chairman, we discussed this at our last meeting about putting in an offer on a land contract. The owners of the property have come back with a counter offer. We had in there to make it, the cities would have the sole right to withdraw from the contract at any time. And that's why we offered to pay the $40,000 brokerage fee, so that if we should withdraw at any time, they wouldn't lose any money. Well, they're insisting that they want to have that clause withdrawn, so that we can't withdraw at our discretion at any time. And if that is the case, then I would recommend that we not enter into the agreement with them, because we said we were not going to upfront buy this property, and that would effectively mean that. And so we can still work with the owner to try to help them develop the property, but we should, the staff is recommending that we withdraw from the, on advice of our council, that we withdraw from the project.
Okay, thank you, Mr. Stevel. Is there any questions of Mr. Stevel? Mr. Clark.
By withdrawing, we lose our leverage, don't we?
To a certain extent, yes,
And
which is why we were trying to buy the property.
this has been sitting there for a long time, which we've all talked about. What could we do to expedite something happening?
We will continue to work with the brokerage community to try to find prospective buyers to do that.
Has there been any other interest?
Little,
Little?
a little, but some. And we're just gonna try and, even our discussion of potentially buying it has generated some more interest. So hopefully we'll see what happens. And maybe the owner will decide that they're still willing to go with us and withdraw their requirement that we delete that clause, but
As is the president, and just follow through with what you're doing then. Any other questions, Mr. Stevel? If not, we'll go to item number 6. Discussion relative to the utility relocation for South 116th Street in West Rogers, TIF number 10. Mr. Stevel. You want to do 7 with it? Oh, no, that's a
No, no,
different one.
that's a
No,
different one.
okay.
Mr. Chairman, on that issue, when we did the Weingart project, 160th and Rogers, all the utilities were to be buried underground, and they put the poles on both sides of the street and brought the power while it was over. It's gonna cost about $150,000 to remove them. Then we told them, hey, that's what our agreement says, that's what we had it in there for a reason. So take those poles down. Well, now it's been a while, we're still pushing them. And they came back and said, what if we were to make a contribution to the community for some other fund, or the activity they want to do in lieu of that? And I said, well, whatever you ask, I'll take before the authority, and let them decide if they're even interested in exploring that option.
Buy us off, man.
Yeah.
I'd say the polls come down.
Mr. Chairman.
Go ahead, Alderman
I
Chapletsky.
say it was in the agreement. If we had it in agreement that we were gonna do that, would they settle for poles instead of under the ground? No.
You are absolutely correct.
So the consensus is that we
Yeah,
should
and-
follow through with our original agreement. Alderman Haas.
Yeah, thank you, Mr. Chairman. So, taking a step forward, if we don't take their offer, their suggestion, what's their next step? What I'm getting at is, are they gonna sue us? Do you think that they have any chance if they sue us over $150,000?
I mean, anybody can sue us, but I
Yeah.
doubt that they'll sue us. I mean, it's pretty clear of their legal obligation, and obviously they're trying to buy their way out with some other mechanism, but we told them, like the Alderman said, we had it in there for a reason. We want our projects to look good. And we're creating a template for the rest of the community to look good.
And the wires do go underground to the building, except it's on the wires are overhead up to their property line.
On the north and
And then
south
they
side, they go
go
up and down, yes.
underground. Yeah. So, right. Okay.
So the consensus is, go ahead, Mr. Clark.
I'm just gonna ask, what are we going to do to get these polls down?
I think we'll have, when we go back to them, this is the last ditch effort, I'm hoping, and I will have a program for you as to how they're gonna act at the next meeting.
Thank you.
Okay, consensus is just to follow through with our original agreement.
Very good.
Thank you, Mr. Stevel. Item 7, discussion relative to project update for the property located at 6771 West National Avenue. Mr. Stevel.
Sean?
Thank you. This is just a brief update on the 6771 at West National Ave building. As you know, Baum Revision Group has a letter of intent, an approved letter of intent with the CDA to, the idea being they would do a historic rehabilitation to this building on 68th and National. And they would do something similar to what they've done at the Garver Feed Mill in Madison, which we'll be visiting Thursday at 9 a.m. We'll be leaving to go check out what they've done there. So they have a similar concept of what they want to do here. They've submitted the Part 1 to the to get the historic tax credit approvals, and as part of that, the state approved it, but the National Park Service kicked it back and said they want to see the siding removed on the 68th Street side and on the National Ave sides. We were hoping to keep those up as long as we could, just to protect the building as long as we could. But they said, no, we need to see those removed before we will sign off on this historic approval. So we're going through that process. The 68th Street side is actually now completely removed, and they're moving on to National Ave, and that should be done if it's within the next day or two.
Snow liner or something.
And then following that, our historic consultant will come out, take pictures, send that back to the National Park Service, and they will hopefully sign off. That then starts the Part 2 process, which are the detailed building construction plans, which have to also go to the National Park Service for approval. It's a lengthy process, but one that has a lot of value to it. Historic tax credits could be up to $4 million in value to the project. So it's an exciting project. It's just going to take some time. After the Part 2 is done, it would lead to the general time would be closing, along with likely some new market tax credit aspects, and the historic tax credits. and then they would be ready for construction right after that, because the construction drawings would all be done at that point. So once that's done, and likely in the February, construction could start after that.
Thank you, Sean. Any questions? Jason?
Is there, obviously they have to take it down, there are plans to kind of to be able to put it back up to protect it after the photos are taken, or once it's down, it stays down?
Once it's down, we're thinking it stays down. We are having them, patch very temporarily and cheaply the windows that are broken, just to just to sort of protect the inside of the building as much as we can. Patch the holes essentially.
They will put all new winterite or glass in there. And that's part of the whole panache of this project, is that all that glass in that building. So they'll have high energy windows put back in, and
Right now, we're just hoping to just temporarily protect it.
Okay.
It's we're trying to do it, to put panels back on isn't necessarily very, isn't cost effective, but I get the concept.
Mr. Clark?
Have we had prior experience working with the Park Service?
yes, we have, but not exactly like this, but we've worked with the State Historic Preservation folks before. This developer has had a lot of experience with them. We've seen a lot of other developments have a lot of experience with them. We understand the process, and it's,
It's just laborious.
yes, they are very meticulous, and the next part is long because they have to prepare plans and specifications, architectural drawings, bid it out. The nice thing is, once they finally give final approval, they can sign contracts and start construction, so.
Thank you.
Thank you. Then we'll go to item number 8, resolution. Consider authorizing the executive director to enter into a contract amendment with Rambo Environment for providing grant writing service relative to United States Environmental Protection Agency brownfield grant in the amount not to exceed $4,500. Mr. Stiebel.
Second.
Been moved for approval. Any further discussion?
How much is that? Is it general grant services or particular grant?
This is just to write the application.
A specific application?
Yeah,
How
for,
much is the grant?
we hope to get about $500,000.
Thank you.
Okay.
It's 2 pots, hazardous and petroleum, and we've gotten, over the years, we've probably got $600,000, $700,000.
Thank you.
Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Item number 9, resolution to consider approving a license and support renewal
Second.
for Happy Software.
We are happy
And
with
move for approval in second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Item 10, resolution to consider establishing the 2020 payment standard for the Housing Choice Voucher Program. Mr. Stiebel.
Patrick?
What this is HUD each year establishes the rents for the Section 8 program. They do a survey and they come back with a certain fair market rent that's in the market. So in 2019, on the left, you can see what the rents were and the fair market rents in 2020 as proposed by HUD. And per the program rules, we can go to 110% of that figure. And you can see it's relatively modest increases on the 110% for the proposed payment standard for the Section 8 program. So for example, a single bedroom unit would have a max rent of $837. That's $9 increase over 2019. And we're recommending to go to the 110% payment standard.
Utilities?
That's, utilities are separate.
Move approval.
Second.
Been moved for approval in second. Any further discussion? If not, all in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. Item 11, resolution to consider approval 2020 Public House Authority Annual Plan. Mr. Stiebel.
Patrick?
What this is just a renewal of our annual, that we're willing to do the Section 8 vouchers, and we have to submit a plan to HUD that we're gonna do outreach, address, help affordable housing, help individuals who are low income, and we submit a plan that's just a couple pages saying, we're gonna do that. and that we hope that we can effectively manage the 550 vouchers. The one thing to note here is that we do have a resident and advisory board. We submit our plan to them and saying this is how we're gonna administer the program. Do you have any questions? And all of them voted unanimously in favor of the plan. So, this is the step to approve that plan before the authority.
Move approval.
Second.
Move for approval and second. Any further discussion? All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? Resolution passes. 12. Consideration, item 12, consideration relative to the third quarter report for Beloit Road Senior Apartment LLC. Mr. Stiebel.
Peggy?
Just
I
quickly.
I just took it by surprise is all. This is the quarterly report that we get. And Patrick, if you want to
Yeah,
expand on it.
just quickly, the balance sheet shows that our revenues were slightly higher than expenses. We are going through a change here where we're hiring Ogden to come in and do the management. I think today I just got the okay from the city attorney's office for the contract, so we're moving forward on that front. The one thing that we're gonna note is that our quarter four taxes will be increased because our assessment value went up on Bullet Road, so we'll have a slight increase on our taxes in the Q4. But those are the notes that I received from finance.
So just one correction, revenues are higher than expected, they're much higher than expenditures, so
Yeah.
there's like a 266,000 operating income at this point, so, as expected.
Okay.
Is it
All
good
right.
to have that kind of significant
Income?
overage?
Well, there's some reasons for it, and the reasons are part of why we're doing the new agreement with the management company is because we really haven't been maintaining it up to what we need to. So if you go back to the 2017 statements, you'd see a little bit different, and then with Cardinal backing out as far as the management goes and things like that, that caused the expenditures to go down. So we don't expect that's how all the year will go, but at least the first 3 quarters because of what's been going on.
So you're comfortable?
Yes.
Public Works just doesn't have the time and manpower to do what they used to be able to do, and that's why we're moving this off to privatize it so that they can spend their time on public work stuff.
Move approval.
Second.
1 second, please. Don.
Question for, what's the reason behind the interest expense increase?
I don't know specifically that line item, but I will tell you what happens, and this is likely the reason, but I can follow up with you. We have some loans in place from when we did the transfer of ownership due to the LIHTC deal. And those loans, we're only paying interest on some of them, we're not paying off principal. So there's a couple of them that have not been made, so it's more of a paper issue than a monetary issue, but I can certainly follow up and let you know if it's any different than that.
The big issue with that is that as part of the low-income housing tax credit program, we had to put a budget together, and the bigger the number, the more the tax credits that could be sold, so the more cash that you could get back in. So what we did is we took like the value of the property that we own and then lent that money, sold it to the authority, and then lent them the money that now the authority's paying it. And so we didn't have enough, we knew we didn't have enough money to pay us back. We'll get all the money back at the end of the 15-year compliance period, then we'll own it. But so that's why there's interest is being charged in there. It's very nominal, but we're paying it ourselves effectively, but it just got us from a $5 million project to a $7 million project. That got us another $500,000 in funds to renovate the properties. But so we're short on the books that way as a loan, which it has to be for IRS purposes, and that it has to be repaid. So that's why that amount is that high.
Just another question. So the operating income is a little bit higher than anticipated, but yet we're gonna have a negative cash flow from operations? And maybe we can talk offline.
Okay, we'll just hold that and you can discuss that with Peggy later.
Balance sheet changes, but
Yeah.
yeah, we can certainly.
Okay, thank
Okay,
you.
thank you very much. Otherwise, everybody else is satisfied with what we have just discussed there? All right, thank you. We go to item number E, consider.
vote. We have a motion and a second, we need to vote.
Oh, yeah, that was right, I'm sorry. All in favor?
Aye.
Opposed? The resolution passes, thanks. Item E, consideration relative to the report on redevelopment initiatives. Mr. Stevel.
On 68th and Mitchell, the former Milwaukee ductile site, behavioral health is going to be starting construction hopefully later this winter. We hope to close on the project by the mid-January. And they did come back and had some architectural changes, and they were fairly minor in their appearances, like these windows here were gone, as you can see here, just to help them reduce some of their costs. But we held pretty firm on the quality of what we wanted to have in that building, and it's what it could turn out to be very little noticeable change, but yet it's still going to be a very delightful and attractive facility for that neighborhood. We're just kind of showing you the differences here that they're changing. They're fairly slight. On the market, on the Mandel project here, they've got about 11 people currently living in there. They got 20 units leased, and they got about 86 prospects that they're working with, trying to get them in there, and they're going to be in here. We're going to have a tour of this facility Monday, the 18th
At 1:30.
at 1:30, park in the street, and then just walk in to the rec center, and then they'll go in there for their gathering space, and then they'll do a tour of the apartments. And then for those that are interested, then they'll go over and tour Aurora. But these are some of the apartments that are currently in there. Also, hopefully in the very near future, we're going to be having an announcement as to what's going to be going on with the south of National Avenue, with this facility here, and building out a restaurant facility, and then some other additional areas, developments in there. But that will probably be at our next, I wouldn't be surprised if we would have it at our next meeting.
We don't
70th Street corridor, that's the next thing on the on here, was just, we took a brief tour last week or the week before of the Cobalt development of some of the remodeling of the school district building, the 1205 building, on the west side of 70th, where they've come a long way and done a lot of great work. And they showed us some of their what their future plans are for the building as well, which are exciting. And we also got a tour of the other side of the street, the east side of 70th Street, the 1126, which was a different story, and it was in rough shape and things like that. But it was interesting to see the two sides of the street, and literally seeing some of the tenants moving from the 1126 building over to the 1205. So it was pretty exciting.
The hallway had the effects of The Shining, with the long hallways and
Without the blood.
without the blood and without a tricycle sitting in there. So
They just have one tenant left. Basically, they have one tenant left in there, the daycare, which is going to be moving over to the Summit Place office building, a part of that. And then and once that tenant's out, they'll be able to complete the asbestos removal. And then you'll start seeing you'll start seeing demolition actually begin after the asbestos removal is complete. Likely, maybe January-ish, or somewhere around that time. So.
They've got most of the asbestos abatement already done. They're just waiting for this last part, people to get out so they can finish that, and then shut down the utilities, and then do all that done. And as soon as they get that out, then they'll start demolition physically of the south end of the building first. Then as soon as they get far enough, then they'll start building the hotel. And then when they get the balance completed, hopefully the market will be prepared so they can start building the new development that I think we talked about at the last meeting, the 350,000 square feet of office. A good thing to remember is that existing building, the 1126 building, probably 5 or 6 or 7 years ago was assessed at about $11 million. And since Dick Carlson owned it probably 15 years ago, it was sold to another group of investors, and they just took money out of it, and they never put money back into it. And so they took $11 million building, and all the tenants eventually left, and it became a $3 million, $4 million building. And it was just a classic example of disinvestment ruining that building. And now it's going to have to be demolished. But that's the price you pay for not reinvesting. And granted, some developers can't afford to reinvest, and that's what happens to neighborhoods when owners can't afford to reinvest. They start deteriorating, and this is a classic example.
I just want to say, I'd be remiss not to mention that it was, when you get through these hallways and you walk through all these office buildings, you really feel the sense of Allis-Chalmers and the footprint that it really left here in this city. And when you go through, then how many people passed through these hallways and worked. And I know we have a person that worked there at one time, and it's certainly impressive to know that the size of Allis-Chalmers at its day, when its heyday, was certainly an impressive company.
Anything else?
Next item, Patrick, Highway 100,
Well,
or Sean,
but-
you did that one.
Yeah, just speaking of hotels, the Holiday Inn Express is under construction on 102nd and Lincoln. This is just a picture taken today of it.
Elevator shaft's
The
up.
elevator shaft is up. So that they've moved very quickly on this, and will continue to do so.
And there'll be a lot of the building built before they take down the rear steel building. There's still some tenants in there, and they need the land mass to be able to keep building, and then they'll start tearing it down.
Any idea on the tear down timing?
Late this winter.
Okay.
Their goal is still to be open by July, by the Democrat National Convention, so we'll,
Interesting.
I think if you saw the last few months of Mandel, people were climbing all over themselves trying to get that thing done. We'll probably see that over there as well.
Just a note, the pool's frozen, so.
Yeah.
The Highway 100 corridor study is ongoing. Tomorrow night, we have a public meeting on November 13th at 5:30 at Lane Intermediate School. The whole idea is this is just, it's gonna be DOT style with some boards up highlighting some of their concepts and thoughts about the Highway 100 corridor, of ideas that have been concluded, or recommendations that are gained from focus groups in the public survey and the public, the prior public meeting that's been conducted. I did want to go back to this slide. The potential redevelopment of the former Pick and Save on 111th and Greenfield has been, I should say, stymied, and it's not moving forward at this time. So they had some ownership challenges with the prospective redevelopment. So we can't, at this point, we do not have that project moving forward.
We're still working on it, though.
Yes.
Can we get the results of the Highway 100 study?
Sure. In fact, the CDA it'll be a joint between Planning Commission, Council, and it'll be a council meeting, Planning Commission can come, CDA can come, and it'll be the final presentation that they'll give on the survey from Ginsler.
Tomorrow night is just more citizen input, or it'll be like a DOT style. You just come in, look around, and ask questions of the consultants, and then they'll come back with a final report.
Okay.
Yeah, I'm looking for the final report.
Yep.
Yeah, it's just-
This is National Avenue.
Just showing National Avenue, that building is gone.
Yeah, what's gonna happen there?
It'll sit there and be vacant.
Yeah. And who tore it down? Was it us or
The
an
city,
entity of us?
because of blight elimination, we tore it down. So we don't own it. It's still owned by the estate,
It's the florist. Yeah.
but we're still working to see if we can get a larger development in that area, but at least that eyesore is finally eradicated.
Approved sightlines.
What this is 7030 West National Avenue.
Tear down is an
We
improvement.
received an inquiry, and now it's gone into our proposal for a mixed-use building to be built on 70th and National. The one thing to note is that there's $324,000 in back taxes and interest and penalties, plus another $152,200 that the city invested in the demolition of the prior Expert Auto building that was there. So if you looked at probably the total delinquency on the property, it's $476,000. This will be coming before the Common Council at next week's Common Council meeting as a discussion item relative to how do we proceed with this proposal and working with Milwaukee County. I'm just bringing it to your attention that, we have a proposal here for a $2.3 million building, and the individual represents his bank financing, and he's capitalized, ready to go. So,
It's to build a dental clinic and then 2 stories of apartments above it.
Is that the-
The
then we have a
lap-
couple more.
Okay.
Just a brief update, 1603 South 81st Street, the owners of the Bass Bay Brew House, it's a restaurant group, has purchased, just closed on it this afternoon, the former Barbart funeral home site, and they plan to reuse it for a restaurant and event space. Very exciting vision for the property and exciting to see this investment in the neighborhood. It's overall be a $1.2 million project. They'll likely be coming to the CDA at some point. This is part of our 81st Street was part of our National Avenue study, and as part of that results of that study, there were some economic development incentives towards certain uses like restaurants, so we have a forgivable loan program for up to $50,000 towards equipment, $8,500 forgivable loan towards code compliance, and then facade grant, $20,000 to $30,000 range. So that'll likely just kind of a precursor to what you may see coming down the line. The CDA may see.
The nice thing about these development group was they were asking, what about the rest of that commercial corridor? And we're going, that's exactly what we want you to be concerned about, because what you're going to be doing here is going to be helping us to re-spark that enthusiasm. We see some starting out on the Greenfield Avenue with Polly's Pub buying more bars and stuff, and at the other end with restaurant revitalization. So we want to see the whole corridor cleaned up. Anything else?
Yep, 1 second. And then 6610 West Greenfield Avenue, the Reunion proposed project has received Plan Commission approval, and they are working towards a December closing on the property. So that financing will be coming forward. This is kind of like they want to do it the industrial type of look inside, and more of an architectural where walls are exposed, and just kind of a unique type of architectural statement. They've outlined volleyball courts outside. That's something that the investor on the site has said his patrons said would be a nice addition, including bags and have an outdoor fire pit. And you kind of see it's gone through Plan Commission and received approval. And that one will be coming before you here in December in terms of for sale of the property.
Is that the last one?
That's the last one.
Any other questions regarding any of the redevelopment initiatives? If not, can I have a motion for adjournment of the meeting?
Second.
All in favor?
Aye.
Meeting stands adjourned. Thank you, gentlemen.